Hello there, welcome to another tutorial of if Excel function. Today we are going to study, and by the end of this tutorial you should be very conversant and very fluent in Excel, use of if function of Excel. And before we start, we have two sets of tables on this screen, as you can see. One table has student marks. This is the data we shall be using for analysis, for the demonstrations and the examples we shall be doing on this tutorial. The second table shows very important that you need to remember, very important operators that are used for this particular if function. These are Excel operators and they are also found in other programming languages. But for this particular function, or for this particular tutorial, these are the key and the most important logical comparators, operators that you need to remember and understand. Now, as we start, this is what you're going to do for if, because if function is a function that helps you make logical comparisons. It tests two conditions or more and gives you a particular result if the conditions are true, or a different result if the conditions are false. So to help us start, we're going to do it very basic for a start. The first start is based on our student data here, or the scores. We're going to first of all test for pass and fail. And to do so, we'll consider a pass as anything that is greater than or equal to 50%. These marks, I've assumed that this is a percentages. And then we'll consider a fail as anything that is less than 50%. That is what we'll consider as the pass or fail. So for us to help us do this analysis and to help us understand the if function, we're going to write the if function syntax. So it's normally written as is equals to if in brackets. This is the logical test that you're doing. So the logical test will be okay, let's just do it here so that it's more clearer. We'll do here pass or fail, and then from that we are going to write our formula here. And the basic syntax of the formula or of if function is equals to if in brackets. The logical test you're doing here is if the score is greater than or equal to 50, we designate that as a pass. So if you look at this syntax here, this if logical test, this is what we are testing. We're testing whether the score is greater than or equal to 50, and another test we're doing is whether the score is less than 50. If it is true, we will return the value here under if value if true. This is what we return. In the event that that is not true, the test does not pass, then we return the false. Let's do it so that to make it more easier for you to understand, we're going to put if this cell here, which is C6, is greater than or equal to 50, comma, open comma space, in quote. This is what we're going to return if that is true. We'll return a pass. Comma. Otherwise, we return a fail. It's that simple. That is our test, and that is our most basic function of if, or the most if function, most basic if function. That's how it is written. So if you do that and enter, you realize that the first score here, Anthony, has a pass in mathematics. We're going to copy this formula to all other cells so that we find out how the situation is. We can do the same and copy this formula to others. For example, this is math. We can copy it to the language, and we can copy it to the science. We can copy this all the way, drag it all the way. It will give us the score or the status of other subjects, and we can drag it all the way here. That's the beauty about Excel. So basically what we've done is we have taken the formula here and we have copied it to other cells to tell us whether other subjects are pass or fail. That is the first demonstration of the if function. Then finally, what I would like us to cover today on this tutorial is the use of AND or in combination with the if function. So the AND is a logical operator and OR are logical operators. These two are logical operators. These are logical operators, and what do they do? AND operator returns a value of true if both the two comparators are true. Any other combination returns a false. That means if you're comparing an A and a B, if A is true and B is true, then the result will be true. Any other combination of A true, B false, B true, A false, or both false will return a false. OR operator works directly opposite what AND operator does. So what OR does is OR returns true when either or both are true. So in our case, in combination with the if function, we have the syntax for if and this is how it goes. So for example, for this set of data, if we wanted to test for validity of our input, assuming the input of these marks or results was erroneous at some point, how can we determine? So this is what you do to, for example, on a very high level, to highlight any invalid entries. We would say, for example, anything that our mark scores should be equal to or greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100%. So any student who has scored a 0 or greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100, we consider that entry as a true. Okay, then we could check here and say validity, for example. How do we test validity? We'll come here and say and use the AND function. This operator, logic operator here, will help us. And the formula or the syntax is if in brackets, then the operator AND. Sorry, we should have started with the equal sign. Sorry for that. To display it as a formula. And then brackets. You can see it gives you the first logical test, the second logical test, and thereafter it's not complete. It's supposed to tell you what to return in the event of what. In the event of true, what do you return? In the event of false, what do you return? So our logical test will be this must be greater than or equal to 0, comma. That is our first logical test. And this must be less than or equal to 100%, close the brackets, comma. Then what do you return in that such case? This is a valid entry. Valid. And otherwise, we return invalid. And then we close our parentheses. And that is our formula. What do you get? You get that the entry here is valid, and we assume all other entries to be valid. Assume that we altered the entry for mercy and we add a minus. Maybe during the entry there was an erroneous entry which became to minus, then this automatically turns into an invalid entry. Assume this was 170. Assume during the entry for the amount Stephen has entered, there was an error and we erroneously entered 805 or 850. What happens? This turns into invalid. So that is the use of AND operator in combination with the if function. To quickly demonstrate the use of a if function in combination with the OR operator, we will assume that let's take for example the student are going to be admitted to pursue a science course, and to do so you must get either an A in mathematics or an A in science. How do we do that? So we'll just come here and have something close like the choice or approved. Let's even say accepted or dropped. This is for the choice of a course, for example. This is just hypothetical, just for the demonstration purposes. So what do we expect here? We are saying we're going to use the combination of if function and or, and the formula is, or the syntax is same. So we'll say if, this goes if in brackets or in brackets. What are we comparing? The first logical operator is we want to see whether the student has scored an A in mathematics or an A in science. If either of them is an A, they are accepted. If none of them is an A, they are dropped. So we'll take this cell and say if that is greater than or equal to 80, comma, the science is here, is greater than or equal to 80. These are the two comparisons we are doing. Then comma will pass accepted. Otherwise, we'll have dropped for taking that particular course. And then we close the parentheses. If we enter, we realize that Anthony was accepted. And if we copy this formula to the rest of the students, we realize some were dropped, others were accepted. That is the if function. If you like the video, please kindly subscribe. You can like it here, and you can follow for more videos of a similar nature.